with BUCS celebrating its 100 years of existence, and ESPN announcing their interest in British university sport. Immersive asks, is British university sport the most untapped market?
Gonna be legends!
In the past, university sport was seen as the pastime of a social amateur elite, with many locals being able to unrelate to their nearest university. This may be because they didn't live in the same area or preferred to preserve in other sports. This was also the time where the height of the argument between amateur and professional sports. If you were poorer, you were more likely to engage in a sport that was seemingly professional in nature. Currently, there is somewhere between 130 and 200 higher education institutions. And as of 2017, 60% of students were from the so-called working class backgrounds. As stated at the BUCS conference, BUCS is attempting to have greater commercialisation of their product and to put university sport into the mainstream. In recent years, as the world has changed and nations have become more globalised, there has been a major impact on the commercialisation of society. This has resulted in advancement in many industries, including sport, in which there has been a change to a certain extent from amateurism to professionalism. Through commercialisation, values of players have shifted from traditional sporting values of participation to more commercialised sporting values, such as winning at all costs, fame, and fortune. Commercialisation of sport at university level does not erode traditional sporting values or significantly result in negative values. On the contrary, it just kind of shifts them. It also creates the opportunity for career development, for earning potential through playing sport, and the opportunity to experience the professional side of sport for those who haven't been through academies. The traditional sporting values are still evident in all levels, but due to the commercialisation, values such as money and career progression are more evident and have greater emphasis to the individual. Nowhere is this more evident in BUCS Super Rugby. Ex-academy players or even players who may have been missed by academies have the opportunity to perform at a high level. Many former BUCS Super Rugby players have gone on to play for Premier League teams and even represent their nation. For academy players, it allows for a kind of last chance saloon where they can play top flight rugby and also get an education. For many mainly individual sports like swimming and athletics, university is seen as the only way to go because universities often have the best coaches. It is also easier to get national funding while at a university. The internet has allowed for greater commercialisation of sport, as it allows for university sport to be seen to a greater, if somewhat niched, audience. Yet again, streaming does not bring in the same viewing figures as television. Television is seemingly reserved for the classic varsity matches. Yet this does show that there is a highly engaged audience willing to watch. BUCS also has a strong recognised brand. There is also great potential for growth in this environment as there is a highly engaged audience for mainly students. Yet again, here lies the problem. You need to be able to make it more appealing to an outside viewer, not just a student. And therefore the numbers who attend these games would also hopefully improve if you get the audience more engaged in the sport. Students generally don't have much money, therefore getting them to pay to view a sport like university sport is highly unlikely. And this helps to segue onto the negatives, to which there are many. For starters, the numbers within the stadiums are often inconsistent. Talking about BUCS Super Rugby, for example, you can either get tens of thousands a couple of thousand standing around a field, or even just one man and his dog attending the games. This can look pathetic on screen and can put people off from watching the game on television. University sport also has an image problem, that being that the quality of the sport is not that good, and that it's just a cheap excuse for a night out. Also, unless you have a vested interest in a university, local people are unlikely to have a vested interest in the games of their local university. So, using an anecdotal example, I went to Leeds Beckett and Cardiff Met, and therefore I have a vested interest in those teams doing well. However, I couldn't really care less about Essex University, Anglia Ruskin or Whittle, even though they are my local unis. Now this depends on how high a level and the sport in which the university is playing. Unlike the collegiate system, which has a greater commercialisation tradition, UK universities also lack flexibility. It is not easy to transfer from one university to another, or even to one course or to another course at the same uni. This is because you could lose funding. Some of the best coaches may not be at the other university. You must also consider the increased amount of debt and the fact that you may not be able to get another student loan, therefore making it not worth the while of the athlete. British universities are also not particularly too keen on extracurricular activities, which they include sport as being one of them. They have a greater emphasis on academic performance and university lifestyle. This is because the student is in fact the consumer as well as the customer. Therefore, sport is not high on the financial agenda. Loughborough is a university that bucks this trend, as they utilise the sport's success as a way of generating money, which in fact pays for the sport. They also have good relationships with colleges, which they allow to teach their courses. This means that they can have a lot of good athletes en masse. Usually in sport, in all or any sport, greater investment generally leads to a better chance of success. However, unlike professional sports, the returns in university sport is generally unclear, beyond the exceptions of marketing the university. One example of investment in university sport is Leeds Carnegie. As you can see from this table, you can almost visually see the time where they cut their own funding to competitive sport and focused on other areas. This was mainly around the problems with the metropolitan funding body. In other words, most competitive sport for some universities is just not considered a financial priority. This is highlighted by BUCS themselves, who have stated their ultimate aim is creating an inclusive sporting environment that lives up to BUCS' mission to be the best university sport experience in the world, hence experience. If that means more competitive sport out there on a national stage, then thus be it. However, BUCS is very cautious about this and very reserved, aiming to improve the sporting experience in terms of having fun and that kind of thing. The actual BUCS itself is often left to small streaming sites on YouTube and small companies like Vinco. So, in summary, there is a huge potential for university sport to be aired. However, the financial cost of this is hard to quantify at this present moment in time.